Welcome to Sleep Manual. I'm your host. For tonight, I'll be reading a selection from the Octatrack Mk2 user manual, a sampler and synth product from a company in Sweden called Electron. Chapter 8, Projects. Each set can contain an amount of projects only limited by the size of the compact flash card. A project contains 16 banks, 8 arrangements, 128 flex sample slots and their associated flex samples, 128 static sample slots and their associated static samples, 8 track recorders and their recorder buffers, a BPM setting controlling the tempo of the patterns, and project menu settings. Projects can be regarded as a collection of compositions. A project could, for example, contain your whole live set or a certain amount of songs you're working on. One project at a time can be loaded. For the Octatrack Mk2 to work as intended, a project should always be active, i.e. loaded. All changes made to an active project are automatically cached on card. This means you can work on a project, switch off the Octatrack Mk2, switch it on, and start working exactly where you left off. It is possible to save a project by performing a project save command, though. This is only necessary if you want to be able to revert the project to a specific state. In general, performing a project save command is recommended once you are content with a project. This way, you can keep on experimenting with the project, but, if needed, always go back to the saved state by performing a reload command. Read more about how to save and reload a project in section 8.4.1. Project on page 31. When not working within a project, for example, after mounting a set containing no projects, it is still possible to assign machines, effects, and make parameter and pattern settings. The Octatrack Mk2 will remember the settings of the active bank even after being switched off, but will discard them if a new set is mounted or another project is loaded. Should you want to save changes as a new project, use the Save to New command, found in the project menu. If the Octatrack Mk2 boot and sense that no project is active, a prompt saying you're not working in any project, use the Save as New command to keep any changes, will be shown. Attention! Before ejecting the compact flash card, the active project should always be synced to the card by using the sync to card operation. Otherwise, changes will be lost. For more information, please see 8.4.1 Project on page 31. 8.1 Projects and RAM memory. The total amount of RAM memory available to a project is 85.5 megabytes. This project is shared between the track recorders and the samples loaded to the flex sample slots. By default, the flex sample slots can be filled with 64 megabytes of samples, while the reserve track recorder memory ensures that each track recorder always can sample 2.7 megabytes of stereo audio. But you can change the allocation of reserve track recorder memory and flex RAM memory. Track recorder memory can be increased at the cost of flex RAM memory. The opposite also applies, meaning flex RAM memory can be increased at the cost of track recorder memory. The track recorders can also use flex RAM when sampling. Read more on how to allocate RAM memory in section 8.6.5 Memory on page 37. 8.2 Loading and creating a project. Before loading a project, a set needs to be mounted. Read more about how to create and mount sets in section 7.1, Creating and Mounting a Set, on page 26. 1. Projects are loaded in the Project menu. Press Project to open this menu. Select Project and press the right arrow or Yes to access the sub-menu options. Then select Change, located in the Project section. 2. Press Yes to open a list of the projects available for the set. Below the header of the menu, the name of the active set is visible. The currently active project is indicated by inverted graphics. 3. To load a new project, select one from the list and load it by pressing Yes. The currently active project will automatically be synced to card, meaning all settings and assignments will be saved to the card before the new project is loaded. 4. Create a new empty project by selecting Create Empty Project and pressing Yes. A naming menu will appear where the new project can be named. Tip: it is possible to rename and delete projects while in the Change menu. Press Function plus Bank to open a menu where rename and delete options are present. 8.3. Loading samples to the sample slots. For the flex and static machines to be able to play back audio, samples need to be loaded to the flex and static sample slot lists of the project. Samples loaded to the 128 flex sample slots are called flex samples. They are only available to flex machines. Samples loaded to the 128 static sample slots are called static samples. They are only available to the static machines. The samples in the sample slot lists are accessible by all flex and static machines of the project. Read more how to assign the samples of the sample slot list to flex and static machines in section 11.3, Assigning Flex and Static Samples to Machines on page 56. To load samples for the sample slots, the audio pool must contain samples. Read more how to fill the audio pool with content in the section 4.2, Audio Pool, on page 16. 8.3.1, Loading from the Quick Assign menu. 1. The quickest method to load samples to the sample slots is to quickly double press a track key. The Quick Assign menu for that track will appear. The flex sample slot list will be displayed if the active track contained a flex machine. The static sample slot list will be displayed if the active track contained a static machine. If the track contained any other machine type, the machine list will appear. If so, open the flex sample slots by moving the cursor to flex and press the right arrow key. Open the static sample slot list by moving the cursor to static and pressing the right arrow key. 2. Select an empty sample slot position and press Yes to open the file browser. For more information, please see 8.3.3 File Browser on page 30. It reflects the content of the audio pool of the mounted set. 3. Locate the sample you wish to load and press Yes. Both the flex and static sample slot lists can be entered and samples loaded without the machine of the track being changed. If you want to replace a sample already loaded to a sample slot position, but don't want to assign the sample to the flex or static machine of the track, press the right arrow key to open the file browser. It is possible to load samples to the recorder buffers, just as if they were flex sample slots. The recorder buffers, which contain any audio captured by the track recorders, are found in the flex sample slot list, located above flex sample slot position 1. The length of the sample is restricted by the reserved memory of the buffer. If the loaded sample is longer than allowed by the buffer, it will be truncated. Most samples will also be converted to stereo. 8.3.2, Loading from the Source Setup menu. The Source Setup menu can also be used when loading samples to sample slots. 1. Press Function plus Source to open the Source Setup menu and access the flex and static sample slot lists. If the machine list appears, select the machine type whose sample list you want to access and press the right arrow key. 2. Load a sample by selecting a sample slot and pressing Yes. The file browser reflecting the content of the audio pool and the active set will be opened. Locate the sample you wish to load and press Yes to load it. If you want to replace a sample loaded to a sample slot position, but don't want to assign the sample to the flex or static machine of the track, press the right arrow key to open the file browser. Tip: select this sample in the Flex Static Sample Slot list and press Function plus Bank to edit it in the audio editor. Selecting a sample in the Source Setup sample list and pressing Function plus left-right will load the next or previous sample from the directory the original sample resided in. Samples can be previewed by the sample slot lists. Select a sample and press Function Yes to do so. This will preview the sample from the main outputs. Press Q plus Yes to preview from the Q outputs. When previewing, the quick scroll feature will temporarily be disabled for as long as Function is pressed. (8.3.3) File Browser. The file browser is used when locating samples that should be loaded to the Flex and Static sample slots. It is a representation of the audio pool on the set. Folders are indicated by a D. Open folders by selecting them and pressing the right arrow key or Yes. If an open folder contains more files or folders than the menu list can show, two arrows pointing downwards will be visible in the lower right part of the screen. Scroll down in the folder by pressing the down arrow key. A sample is loaded by selecting it and either pressing Yes or the right arrow key. However, the file browser is not closed until Yes is released. This makes it possible to keep holding Yes and use the up-down arrow keys to instantly load the next or previous file in the directory without having to reopen the file browser for each file. This mode of assignment is handy to use when the sequencer is running and you want to try out how different sample assignments will affect the sound and feel of the pattern. At the top of the menu, the folder path is visible. To go back one step in the folder hierarchy, press the left arrow key. If the file browser was open from a Flex sample slot list, the bottom of the screen will show how much RAM memory is available to the project. The size of the samples are indicated in megabytes to the right of the sample names. When the cursor is moved over a sample, the smiley symbol at the bottom of the screen will show a happy face if the sample is ready to be loaded without any problems. If the file is too big to be loaded, or if the file is incompatible with the Octatrack Mk2 audio engine, the smiley will look sad. Samples with an unsupported sample rate, like 48 kHz, will make the smiley look indifferent, indicating the sample will be played back, albeit at the wrong speed. To the right of the smiley, the sample rate, bit depth, and number of channels of the selected sample is shown. When opening the browser from a Flex Static slot already containing a sample, that sample will be indicated by inverted graphics. Tip: audio files can be previewed in the file browser. Select the file and press Function Yes to do so. This will preview the file from the main outputs. Press Q plus Yes to preview from the Q outputs. Previewing samples temporarily disables the page scrolling function, initiated by pressing Function plus up-down, for as long as Function is held. When previewing, the sample will be affected by the track effects of the active track. It is possible, though, to preview samples in a dry fashion. This setting is found in the Personalize menu. For more information, please see 8.5.4 Personalize on page 33. Attention! At the root of the audio pool file structure, several folders might be found. The audio folder contains the audio pool. Any other folders most likely represent any saved projects of the set. If audio files, as recommended, only have been put in the audio folder, the project folders will appear as empty when exploring them using the file browser. This concludes this reading of the Octatrack Mk2 Owner's Manual. We hope it's helped you to fall asleep. Join us again soon for readings from more manuals. And please like and subscribe. Good night.